Hello. I want to start exploring hip-hop by focusing on the rapper Nasir Jones. He's better known as Nas. Born in 1973, he grew up in the Queensbridge public housing development. Of course, public housing development is a fancy way of saying the projects. Queensbridge is one of the largest in North America. It's located in Long Island City in the borough of Queens within New York City. As explained by the writer and filmmaker Nelson George, Nas first emerged as a guest rapper on Live at the Barbecue by the Main Source in 1991, in which Nas boasts about his prowess as an MC. He then met MC Serch, whose real name is Michael Barron and whose pursuit had shifted from rapping to management and production. Serch soon after brought some of Nas's demo recordings to the Madison Avenue offices of Sony A&R executive Faith Newman. Thus began Nas's incredibly successful career. Thinking about how Nas boasts in Live at the Barbecue, the scholar Imani Perry compares hip-hop to boxing. Both foster a diverse group of bragging personalities with aggressive styles. They are strategic competitions. Hip-hop is poetry that shifts styles of defense and offense, moving between grace and bull-like forward barreling. It dances, it leans back, and then it attacks. It uses the broadest allegory to discuss the individual moment of confrontation. She goes on to say how, at times, the MC will directly refer to the symbolism, telling the audience what he or she plans to do lyrically to other MCs. At other times, the reference to skill or power comes obliquely, as in moments of role play as Asian martial arts experts or mafiosi. So in this short example in Live at the Barbecue, Nas only raps for about a minute, the listener is hit with a barrage of metaphors and similes, many centering on militant and literary themes. Even though Nas dropped out of school in the 8th grade, his gifts for working with words is well known. The prominent sociologist Michael Eric Dyson called him one of the most fiercely gifted lyricists in the history of hip-hop. It is important to point out that Nas's father is Olu Dara, a gifted jazz and blues musician. Dara left his family when Nas was 13 years old. Even so, there was apparently some reconciliation, because Dara can be heard on several of his son's recordings. Now I want to turn to one of Nas's most highly regarded rap songs, New York State of Mind. This is from the album Illmatic, which was released in 1994. The album cover has a childhood photo of Nas with an uninviting expression. In the background is an image of the projects of Queensbridge. The album only sold 200,000 copies that year, but after 7 years it had sold 1 million copies. In the record industry, this is what is called going platinum. Judging from many opinions, Illmatic remains his greatest artistic achievement. At the end of 2012, the Rolling Stone magazine listed New York State of Mind at number 31 in the article titled The 50 Greatest Hip-Hop Songs of All Time. As described in the article, the song is no anthem or ode to the city. It is a detailed narrative about a Gotham gunfight, delivered in a nearly 60-bar run that Nas later broke up for the song. DJ Premier, who produced the track, recalled that Nas did the whole first verse in one take. As noted by the writer Marcus Reeves, this recording was inspired by the devastation the drug trade and thug mentality was having on Nas's friends and community. Before we dig into some of the meanings of this song, I want to point out that it uses the C-sharp Phrygian mode. Let me explain. In general, modes, which are also called scales, are often thought of as major or minor. Major can be thought of as bright, and minor can be thought of as dark. The Ionian mode, or major scale, sounds bright, like this. The Phrygian mode is minor and sounds very dark, like this. This choice was made by the producer of this song, DJ Premier, whose real name is Christopher Edward Martin. He sampled part of an instrumental jazz fusion piece from 1977 titled Mind Rain by the drummer and pianist Joe Chambers. The darkness of the Phrygian mode fits perfectly with the chilling scenes laid out in this song. Nas definitely aims to keep it real, so to speak. Imani Perry explores the complexity of the approach to realism in hip-hop. She says it can be a way to describe the social effects of urban decay and poverty, and it can include protecting one's dignity. Unfortunately, this kind of protection can lead to violent action or ruthless individualism. Keeping it real can allow for fiction, imaginative constructions, and hip-hop's journey into myth. Being real is a call to authenticity that becomes a political act. So a rap song may present life in the ghetto like an unnarrated documentary film, or it may present a more emotional and less factual version of the ghetto's gritty reality. I myself would say it becomes political at the moment a rapper articulates the imbalance and unfair use of power. Perry goes on to distinguish the first-person and third-person narrative. In New York State of Mind, it is easy to see that Nas personifies a gangster-like character. I believe the choice to speak in the first person amplifies the effectiveness of his narrative. Its impact is more immediate. That said, it is important to realize that this type of character is something that can be ideologically charged and artistically crafted, as Perry writes. And this is why we should appreciate Nas's story. He is not merely relating some autobiographical information, even though parts of this song are probably drawn from his own experiences. And he is not merely telling us about the dark life of a drug dealer, even though Queensbridge has had plenty of them. I believe Nas is expressing some deeper truths that include exposing a part of America that is tragic. In order to keep it real, he also uses a lot of slang and profanity, including the N-word. Rather than comment on the N-word as it is used in rap music, I would like you to listen to some prominent people within the African American community speak about their view of this label. You might be surprised at what you hear. Of course, the N-word is controversial. So controversial that in 2008, Nas himself was pressured by Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and others to remove it as the name of his 9th studio album. The title could still be inferred because, like the famous picture titled The Scourged Back from 1863, in which the runaway slave Gordon displays his many welts from being whipped, Nas displays his back with photoshopped scars that form the letter N. Nas also conveys a sense of realism in New York State of Mind through many references to guns. Americans have a distinct view on guns when compared to other developed countries. For example, in the UK, handguns were almost completely banned for private ownership in 1997 following the Dunblane School massacre. In Japan, gun laws are so restrictive that almost no one owns a gun. This is because Japanese gun law starts with the 1958 Act stating that no person shall possess a firearm or firearms or a sword or swords. So their approach is the opposite of what we have in the United States. Michael Eric Dyson claims that the gun is a central part of the iconography of the ghetto. Dyson says that too many young black and brown men view their sense of strength and industry and machismo and manhood through the lens, and sometimes literally through the scope, of a gun. And what you hear a lot in the lyrics of gangster and hardcore rappers are descriptions of the physical effects of gun violence on the larger community, from the viewpoint of the perpetrators and the victims. The gun is at once the merchandise of manhood and the means of its destruction. The gun is the most lethal means of undermining the masculine stability that many rappers desperately seek. Dyson goes on to say that no other industrialized nation is so consumed by the gun as the symbol of freedom, which, as it turns out, is the very thing that can lead to bondage, to death, and destruction. As a socially conscious rapper, Nas has directly addressed the brutality surrounding so-called blood diamonds from Africa with Shine on 'Em in 2006. He has also addressed civil rights with songs such as You Can't Stop Us Now in 2008. It's important to note that Nas is adding to a legacy in Black American culture that started long before hip-hop came into being. There are many examples, but to give you just a couple, the famous soul singer James Brown recorded Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud in 1968. And I Don't Want Nobody to Give Me Nothing, Open Up the Door, I'll Get It Myself in 1969. The titles are self-explanatory. This brings us to one last song by Nas, I Can, which he recorded in 2002 for the album God's Son. Similar to James Brown's pro-education song, Don't Be a Dropout from 1966, and his anti-drug song King Heroin from 1972, Nas admonishes a young audience to avoid drugs and study hard in order to realize their dreams. This, of course, ties into the American ideals of equal opportunity and upward mobility. It is impossible to know to what degree Nas has influenced his audience's values and beliefs, but it is easy to see how Nas can use his commercial success as a platform to promote positive change. The main melodic hook in the song is the beginning of Für Elise by Ludwig van Beethoven. It begins like this. From my experience as a private piano teacher, I can tell you that this short piece for piano is played frequently, and by that I mean too frequently. Given its popularity, it is easy to see how Nas can use it as a symbol of music education and creativity. This idea is reinforced by images of children playing musical instruments in the official video. The piano piece comes with cultural associations of education and self-empowerment. And here is where we hit some complexity. Ludwig van Beethoven was a German composer who lived from 1770 to 1827. He is one of the most prominent composers of European classical music. To invoke this tradition is to place value on the dominant, that is to say, white culture of America. This may not seem like a big deal, but in the last verse of this song, Nas also reveals some influence from the Five Percenters. According to Michael Muhammad Knight, the Five Percenters, also known as the Nation of Gods and Earths, began as a cluster of outcasts from the Nation of Islam's Harlem Mosque in the 1960s. Led by a man named Allah, the Five Percenters originally believed that all black men were gods. As explained by Nelson George, they also hold the belief that white men are devils. If we go back to the founder of the Nation of Islam, W.D. Fard, we can see that what he wrote in 1934 influenced the formation of the Five Percenters. Fard wrote that 85% of the earth is populated by uncivilized people. 10% are slave makers, and the remaining 5% are poor righteous teachers who know that the living God is the Son of Man, the Supreme Being, the black man of Asia. Ultimately, in I Can, Nas stresses achievement and success, a very powerful message to inner city youth.